Hello, scholars. Today we're going to talk about equations. And here's some notes for you to write down tonight or today. First of all, an expression. That's what we've been working with for the last week or so. We've been talking about an expression. It's a mathematical phrase that contains numbers, variables, and operations. We also today are going to start talking about equations. Now, equations are a mathematical statement that says two expressions or terms are equal. You might want to take a moment right now to pause this video and to write these two definitions down. Let me tell you about the parts of an equation. The parts of an equation. First of all, you would have a term. And in this term could be a term or an expression. Plus, minus, divide, or multiply. You'd have an operation. That would be your operation. And then you'd have another term or expression. And then you would have an equals. And this would be a term or expression. Now, if you'll remember correctly, we talked about what a term was last week. We said a term, and I'm going to go ahead and give you that definition again, just in case you don't remember it. If you'll remember correctly, we said that a term is a number with the variable. It could also just be a variable, or it could be a constant. So if you'll dig back in your memory, we've talked about what terms are. We've talked about what a term is. So at this time, I suggest that you take a moment, pause the video, and write this information down. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about, I'm going to move this up some here. We've got our term. Let's talk about what an equation might look like. When it says a term or expression, you might have something that looks like 7a minus 3 equals let's say 11. Okay? 7a minus 3 equals 11. This would be an equation. Okay? This particular equation has this term 7a. It has this term 3, and then it has an equals, and then it has this term and 11. Now it also has your operation right here, and it has your equal sign. It has to have an equal sign for it to be considered an equation. It has to have an equal sign for it to be considered an equation. So don't forget that, okay? So we're just looking at this and saying this is a term. And how could we work out this term? Well, we could say, well, we'll get into that later. But this is what an equation would look like. This is what an equation would look like. All right, so let's move on here. Tell me if this right here is an equation. If I were to put 15a, oops, let me erase that, I'm sorry. Where's my eraser on here? There it is. Let me erase that 1. If I were to put 5a, and that does not even look like an A, does it? Let's get rid of that and put that A better. 5a minus 1 equals 14. Whoops. I'm saying 14 and writing 15. Equals 14. Is this an equation? Yes or no? Let's put yes here. I'm going to write several of them down, and no here. Is this an equation? Well, let's look at it. It has a term. It has a operation. It has another term. It has the equal sign. And then it also has this final term. Okay? Could we actually work this out? Well, yes, we could, because 5 times 3 is 15. 15 minus 1 equals 14. So this would be considered, yes, it is a term. I mean an equation, excuse me. It is an equation. Well, let's look at this next one. If I were to put 13 plus 2 equals 18, is this an equation? Well, let's look at it. It does have a term. It has an operation. It has another term, and it has an equal sign. But is this final term correct? Does 13 plus 2 equal 18? No, it does not. So this is not a term, an equation. And the reason being is because 13 plus 2 does not equal 18. It can't be an equation because the equation does not work. Equation means it's equal. Equation means that the right side has to equal the left side. And with our notes up here, that should be something that we added to this. Whoops. Let's see if I can move this now. With our definition of our equation, it says a mathematical statement that says two expressions or terms are equal. So this is what's important here. They have to be equal in order for them to be an equation. So therefore, this is not an equation because it's not equal. Well, let's try another one. Let's say 7 C plus 3 equals 38. Well, could 7 times something plus 3 equal 38? Yes, it could. So this would be yes, it is a equation. But let's look at this one. 1/2 equals 8 divided by 2. Well, what is 8 divided by 2? Well, first of all, let's do this. We do have a term. We have an equal sign. This is written backwards, but we still have an equal sign. We have a term, and we have an operation. Okay? However, this can't work because 8 divided by 2 is 4. 8 divided by 2 is not 1/2. So this would be considered, no, it is not an equation because 8 divided by 2 does not equal 1/2. Okay? Let's do one more. This will be enough for tonight. Let's do one more. Let me move this up a little bit more. Let's say 9x minus 3. Well, this has our term. This has our term. This right here has an operation. Is this an equation? Is this an equation? What do you think? Well, the answer is no, because there is no equal sign. Because there is no equal sign. So, I'm going to give you something to write down. If I were to say 9x minus 3 equals 27, explain why this is an equation. Explain why this is an equation. Looks a lot like this one up here. Explain why it is an equation. Well, it is now an equation because, whoops, the expression 9x minus 3 is equal to something. That is why it is now an equation. That is why now it is an equation. Okay? All right, we're going to stop there. You guys make sure that you took notes. Make sure that you watched this whole video. And I will see you tomorrow.